I always thought we had the perfect family. Mom, Dad, and me, Emily Parker, living in our cozy 2-story house in the suburbs. Dad travelled a lot for his consulting job, sometimes gone for weeks at a time, but when he was home, he was fully present. He'd take me fishing at the lake, help with my science projects, and make his famous Sunday morning pancakes that could cure any bad mood. That's why what happened last summer shattered my entire reality. It was my 25th birthday, and I had just landed a new job at a marketing firm in Boston. I decided to celebrate by treating myself to dinner at Bellini's, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown that I'd been dying to try. I went alone. My closest friends had moved away after college, and I wanted some quiet time to reflect on reaching a quarter century. I was halfway through my mushroom risotto when I noticed him. Dad. He was sitting at a corner table with a woman who definitely wasn't my mother, and 2 teenagers who looked to be around 16 or 17. The woman leaned toward him, laughing at something he said, her hand resting comfortably on his. The boy sitting across from them had Dad's distinctive nose and jawline. The girl beside him had his eyes, the same striking blue-green that I saw in the mirror every morning. My stomach dropped. I felt dizzy, disoriented, like the restaurant had suddenly tilted sideways. Dad was supposed to be in Chicago at a conference. That's what he'd told Mom when he called this morning to wish me happy birthday. He'd even sent flowers to our house with a card saying he wished he could be there. I watched them for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. They looked happy, comfortable, like a family that had shared countless meals together. The girl, my half-sister, showed Dad something on her phone, and he beamed with pride. I recognized that expression. It was the same one he wore at my high school graduation. Part of me wanted to confront him right there, to storm over to their table and demand answers. But a stronger part kept me frozen in my seat, trying to process what I was seeing. When the waiter came by to ask about dessert, I hastily paid my bill and left, careful to keep my face hidden as I passed their table. For a week, I said nothing. I went to work, came home, and pretended everything was normal when Mom called to check in. But inside, I was unraveling. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I kept thinking about those teenagers and wondering how long they'd been in Dad's life. Had he been living a double life even before I was born? I started digging. Dad's frequent business trips suddenly took on a sinister meaning. I checked his social media profiles and found nothing suspicious, but when I searched public records using his name and birth date, I discovered property records for a house in Westfield, just 40 minutes from where I grew up, but in another school district entirely. Then came the hardest part, deciding what to do with this information. Tell Mom? Confront Dad? Pretend I never saw anything? I chose none of those options. Instead, I drove to Westfield one Saturday morning and parked across the street from the address I'd found. It was a modest colonial with blue shutters and a basketball hoop in the driveway. I sat there for hours rehearsing what I might say if someone came out, but no one did. As I was about to leave, disappointed but also relieved, a car pulled into the driveway. The boy from the restaurant got out carrying a gym bag. He was alone. Before I could reconsider, I stepped out of my car. My heart hammered in my chest as I crossed the street. "Excuse me," I called out. He turned, his expression curious but guarded. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" It's about James Parker." "James Parker?" the boy repeated, his brow furrowing. "You mean my dad?" The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. I'd been clinging to some desperate hope that this was all an elaborate misunderstanding, that Dad had a cousin or a business partner who looked eerily similar. But here was the truth standing right in front of me. "Yeah," I managed. He's my dad too." The boy's face drained of colour. He looked at me more carefully now, his eyes, Dad's eyes, scanning my features. I saw the moment recognition dawned on him. "You're lying," he said. But there was uncertainty in his voice. "I wish I was." My voice cracked. "My name is Emily Parker. I found out last week when I saw all of you at Bellini's. I was having dinner alone and..." He dropped his gym bag. "Holy shit," he whispered. "You're the birthday girl." Now it was my turn to be confused. "What?" "Dad always disappears on June 12th. Says it's an important business dinner he can't miss. Mom gets weird about it, but..." He shook his head, seeming to realize he was saying too much. "I'm Tyler, by the way." "Nice to meet you, Tyler," I said automatically, as if this were a normal introduction and not the most surreal moment of my life. We stood awkwardly in the driveway until Tyler glanced nervously at the house. "Look, you can't be here. If my mum sees you..." "I'm not trying to cause problems," I said quickly. "I just needed to know if it was true, and I guess I wanted to meet you." Tyler's expression softened slightly. "Are you going to tell your mum?" The question had been haunting me all week. "I don't know," I admitted. "Would you, if you were me?" Before he could answer, the front door opened. The girl I'd seen at the restaurant stepped out. "Ty, who are you talking to?" she called, then froze when she saw me. "Megan, go inside," Tyler said urgently, but Megan was already walking toward us, her eyes wide with recognition. "No way," she said quietly. "You look just like Dad." "This is Emily," Tyler said, his voice tight. "She's our sister, half-sister." Megan stopped a few feet away from me. "Does Dad know you're here?" I shook my head. "No one knows except you two." An uncomfortable silence fell over us. I had so many questions, but didn't know where to start. How long had Dad been living this double life? Did they know about me before today? Were there others? "We should talk," Megan finally said, "but not here. Mum will be home soon." Tyler looked torn but eventually nodded. "There's a coffee shop about 5 minutes from here. Cornerstone Cafe. We can meet you there in 20 minutes. I agreed and headed back to my car, my mind reeling. As I drove to the cafe, I tried to prepare myself for what I might learn, but nothing could have readied me for the conversation that followed. Tyler and Megan arrived together, both looking as nervous as I felt. We claimed a quiet corner table, and after ordering drinks, Megan broke the silence. "Dad married our mom 18 years ago," she said. "Tyler and I are twins. We're 17. I did the math quickly. That means he was still married to my mom. They've been together for 30 years. The twins exchanged a glance. "He's with your mom during the week and comes home to us on weekends," Tyler explained. "He told Mom his job requires him to be in the city Monday through Friday." "But your mum never questioned why he has to work every single weekend?" I asked. "She did at first," Megan said, "but he makes good money and she got used to the arrangement. Plus, he calls every night when he's away. Just like he did with my mom when he was traveling." "So all those business trips," I trailed off, "were probably time with you," Tyler finished. "It works the other way too." I felt sick. For 25 years, my father had been meticulously dividing his time between two families, creating elaborate lies to maintain both households. He'd attended my piano recitals and Tyler's baseball games. He'd helped me move into my college dorm and taught Megan to drive. He'd been living two completely separate lives, and none of us had suspected a thing. "There's more," Megan said hesitantly, glancing at her brother. "We found something a few months ago, and we've been trying to figure out what to do about it." Tyler looked uncomfortable but nodded for her to continue. "We were helping Mom clean out the attic, and we found some old papers in Dad's things," Megan explained. "There was a birth certificate for a boy named Christopher Parker, born 12 years before me and Tyler, and there were photos of Dad with a woman and this baby." My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. "Another family." "We think so," Tyler said. "The photos were from Lakewood. That's about 2 hours from here." 3 families. The realization was staggering. How many more secrets was Dad keeping? How many more siblings might be out there? "What are we going to do?" I asked, the question hanging heavy in the air between us. Megan leaned forward, her expression resolute. "I think we need to find Christopher." Finding Christopher was surprisingly easy in the age of social media. One weekend and dozens of searches later, we located a Christopher Parker in Lakewood, whose photos showed subtle but unmistakable resemblances to all of us. He worked as a high school English teacher, and, according to his profile, was 30 years old, exactly matching the birth certificate Megan and Tyler had found. What was harder was deciding who would reach out to him. Eventually, we agreed I should make the first contact, since I was the oldest, and, in some strange way, this felt like my responsibility. I sent him a carefully worded message explaining who I was and suggesting we meet. I didn't mention Dad or our suspicions. Some news needed to be delivered in person. Christopher responded within hours, curious but cautious. We arranged to meet at a park in Lakewood the following Saturday, neutral ground for a conversation that would change all our lives. The three of us drove there together. None of us had told our mothers anything yet, agreeing we needed more information before potentially destroying multiple families. The guilt of keeping this secret weighed heavily on me, especially when Mom called midweek to chat about Dad's upcoming business trip to Seattle. Every word felt like a betrayal, knowing what I now knew. At the park, Christopher was waiting on a bench near the lake. He stood when he saw us approaching, and the resemblance to Dad was even more striking in person. The same tall frame, the same way of standing with hands in pockets. It was like looking at a younger version of our father. "Emily?" he asked, then glanced curiously at Tyler and Megan. "Yes," I said. "And these are Tyler and Megan." We sat on adjoining benches, the atmosphere tense with unspoken questions. I took a deep breath and showed him a family photo on my phone, a Christmas picture of me, Mom, and Dad from last year. "This is my father," I said, watching his face carefully. "James Parker." Christopher stared at the image, his expression shifting from confusion to shock to something darker. That's Jack," he said finally. "Jack Turner. My mother's ex-husband." "Ex-husband?" Megan echoed. Christopher nodded, still staring at the photo. "They divorced when I was 15. He moved away for a job opportunity, but he kept in touch, visited for holidays sometimes." "When was the last time you saw him?" Tyler asked. "About 2 months ago. He came for my 30th birthday." Christopher looked up at us, his eyes narrowing. "Who exactly are you people, and why are you asking about my stepfather?" "Stepfather," I repeated, momentarily thrown off balance. "Yes, Jack came into my life when I was 3. He married my mom, adopted me legally. He's the only father I've ever known, but we're not biologically related." The revelation hit like a thunderclap. We all sat in stunned silence as Christopher pulled out his phone and showed us a photo of a woman holding a baby. The same photo Megan and Tyler had found in their attic. "That's my biological father," he said, pointing to a man standing beside the woman. "He died in a car accident before I turned 1. Mom remarried a couple years later, to Jack." My mind raced to process this new information. "So the birth certificate you have has Jack's name because he adopted me," Christopher finished. "Legally, I'm Christopher Parker, but I was born Christopher Reeves." The pieces were falling into place, but not in the way we'd expected. Dad hadn't fathered a child with a third woman. He'd stepped in to raise someone else's son, all while maintaining 2 separate families of his own. "There's something we need to tell you about Jack," I said carefully. "Or James, as I've always known him." Over the next hour, we unraveled the complex web of deception our father had constructed over 3 decades. Christopher listened in shocked silence, occasionally asking questions that helped fill gaps in our collective understanding. "So for 15 years, he was living with 3 different families," Christopher summarized, his voice hollow. 3 wives, none of whom knew about the others. "And he's still doing it with 2 of them," Tyler added bitterly. Christopher shook his head. "No wonder he never wanted Mom to contact him except through his cell phone. Said his work was too sensitive for her to call the office." He laughed without humor. "There was no office, just other homes." "What do we do now?" Megan asked the question we'd all been avoiding. We spent hours in that park, debating our next steps. Should we confront Dad together? Tell our mothers separately? Keep the secret to protect the people we loved from pain? There were no easy answers, no clear path forward that wouldn't result in heartbreak. In the end, we made a difficult decision. The following weekend, when Dad was supposedly at a conference in Denver, but actually spending time with Megan and Tyler, we arranged for all three mothers to meet at my apartment. Christopher's mom drove in from Lakewood, curious about the urgent family matter I'd mentioned. When all three women were seated in my living room, looking confused and increasingly concerned by each other's presence, I took a deep breath and began to explain. Dad's carefully constructed world collapsed that afternoon. There were tears, accusations, phone calls he couldn't possibly answer satisfactorily. By evening, 3 marriages lay in ruins, and 4 adult children were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered family narratives. That was 6 months ago. Since then, our mothers have filed for divorce and Dad has essentially disappeared, unable to face the consequences of his decades-long deception. But something unexpected emerged from the wreckage. A new kind of family. We siblings meet regularly now. Last month, we rented a cabin for a weekend getaway, just the 4 of us, learning to be brothers and sisters despite the circumstances that brought us together. Our mothers have even formed an unlikely support group, united by their shared experience of betrayal and recovery. It's not the family any of us imagined having, certainly not the one our father intended when he began his elaborate double, or rather triple, life. But it's real, honest, and ours. And in the end, that's worth more than the perfect family I thought I had. Sometimes I still wonder what drove Dad to create such an intricate deception rather than simply choosing one life. Was it greed? Fear of commitment? A desperate need to be needed by as many people as possible? I may never know. But I've gained something valuable through this painful journey. 3 siblings I never knew I had, and the understanding that family, real family, is built on truth, not lies, no matter how well-intentioned those lies might seem.
Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more interesting content coming soon.